It's really not the weapons that are dangerous. It's the people you have to worry about.
Hello and welcome to Heartland Arms, where skill, safety, and training will all come together. I'm Michael, and today we are going to cover ammunition. So we're going to cover what goes into the firearms, and because we are dealing with ammo, the only thing I have access to is this plastic training gun that cannot actually be fed any ammo. When we have ammo out and we're going to go showcase ammo, we do not want to have a live firearm in range, access to it. I don't want any mistakes. Safety and education is what we're focusing on. So when you see us with ammo, and that's right here, when you see it with bullets out here, ammo, cartridges, when you see this, you're not going to see a real firearm. You're going to see just a fake, and even we're going to keep that just so you have an idea of when we're going to go through this. So when we're talking about firearms, we will not have ammo on. When we're talking about ammo, we will not have firearms on. It's a safety thing. It's the way I like to run things. You could do you, but this is how I do it for me. All right. So we're going to go through what a cartridge is. So a lot of people confuse cartridge and bullets as the same. So rifles, pistols, revolvers, and we're going to kind of go over on shotgun shells as well. So we're going to go briefly on that, so keep that in mind as well. A lot of people say bullet when they really mean cartridge. Okay? So we're going to break down what a cartridge is. And if you notice here, the map that I'm using actually has cartridge anatomy. And if you look right up here, that's actually shotgun. So follow along. We'll go through this. So what you do is you have the bullet, okay? So your bullet is also called your projectile, okay? For most cartridges, which is going to be used on handguns, rifles, it's 4 parts that they're broken into. You have your bullet, you have your casing, you have the gunpowder that goes inside the casing, and then your primer. Okay, so we're going to go through this. Bullet. This is the actual projectile that comes out of the barrel. It's usually lead, sometimes copper jacketed. There are different bullets that we can go through, and we're going to cover that as well when we get into ballistics. You have the casing. This is the container that holds everything together here, okay? It's usually made of brass, steel, aluminum, and I will tell you for shotguns, it is plastic. Okay? And then you have the gunpowder. So gunpowder goes in this. So this casing will hold the bullet, the powder, the primer. It all is in one piece, and that's what this is right here. That's it all together. That's what all these are. And they're different sizes, and we're going to get into that, what those mean in another episode. But when this is it broken out, this is it all put together. So inside this cartridge here, you're going to have, we call it gunpowder, but it's a propellant. A lot of times modern gunpowder is different than original gunpowder. When that's ignited, it actually rapidly burns and creates a gas. That gas is what pushes the bullet out of the barrel. You'll never see this unless you see the cartridge apart. And this is something you should never do. Do not ever try to take a bullet or a cartridge apart. Don't ever try to take this apart unless you know what you're doing, you've been trained. That's not something you should do. Make sure that you don't be a novice and try to take that apart just to see what's going on. Now, when you get into the primer, that's also called the head, and then It's also, that primer is that little shiny bit in the middle there. Most of them will have a primer. When you get into like a rim fire, it's just the whole back is a primer on those. That is a small explosive cap. So that small explosive cap is what is struck by the firing pin. It ignites the gunpowder inside. So that's kind of, think of it more like a fuse. So if I come here and let's go to the front. So if I go through here, I'm going to pull this. My hammer or fire is going to strike that primer. That primer is going to ignite the gunpowder in there, which is going to get the gas out, and that bullet's going to come out the barrel. That's kind of the way that all works together. Okay, so let's go back overhead. So that's when you're doing it, okay? That's how it does. Now the shotgun shell, which is over here, and I did not pull one out, but that's okay. I've got this representation. In fact, I'm going to drag this over a little bit, because then I have different items here. So you have the hull right here, hull. That's the casing, okay? That's what actually holds everything together here. Generally, it's made of plastic with a metal base. It's gonna hold everything together, just like our cartridge, okay? You also have a primer, and it's going to be just like a cartridge. Same thing. That's what starts the ignition. You have the powder that's inside. So the powder, you have your powder charge base, and then you have, back here is where that powder goes. It's going to create the gas, and it's going to send the payload out of the barrel, okay? Now, this also has what is called a wad. This is generally a plastic or a fiber barrier that separates the powder from the shot. So up here I have the shot. Here's my wad. Here's my powder. Here's my primer. That's kind of the way this is built. So that keeps that gunpowder back there. Keeps it nice and compact. So this has that wad there. And then you have your shot or your slug, either one. Shot is small pellets for hunting or sport shooting. And a slug is a larger projectile. Generally you use it for defense or big game. It's also going to be very similar to one of our bullets here. So a slug is going to be a lot bigger than that, especially depending on the size of the shotgun that you're using. Okay? So, if you go through this, I'm going to slide this back over so I have that there. When you're going through this, you have, again, your firearm that you're going to have, right? So, and I know it's dark on dark, so I apologize. Most firearms are going to be dark anyway. Firearms are made to shoot a specific type of ammo, okay? Here's my ammo. If you notice, I do have different sizes. We're going to go through this in a ballistics and understanding your caliber as well, but we're going to get a kind of basic. So you have 22, 9mm. There's my 9mm. I believe that's actually a 380. That's my 9mm. So you have different sizes, and then when you get into rifle rounds, they get quite a bit bigger. And so let me slide this back over here. This is what we have here. So you have your 25, 32, and then your rifle rounds. So you have different type of rounds depending on what gun you're using. If you use the wrong ammo, not only can you damage the gun, but you can also get hurt, and you could possibly be killed or maimed. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so always check what is written on the barrel or the slide of your firearm. Follow your instructions for that. And then you also make sure that you're matching what's printed on that box of ammo and what's on that gun. So make sure that, if I'm grabbing a firearm and it says, yep, this is a 45, and then I grab that box ammo and it says 45, I match those two and say, I'm good to go. That's kind of what you want to do there. You also do not want to mix different types of ammo, okay? It's not very good to mix different types. You don't want to, unless you know what you're doing and what can be mixed, I would recommend always sticking to one type and go from there. If you're running low and you need to get more, buy the same kind, switch out, that's what happens. You also want to store ammo very safely. You want to keep it in a cool, dry place away from any heat or open flame. There's gunpowder in there. If this gets hot and it explodes, even if it's not in a firearm, that bullet at the end can go somewhere. Okay? So always keep that. And then also, make sure you're visually inspecting each round. You want to do that before you use it. Make sure there's no dents, cracks, corrosions. Make sure it looks like it's going to be able to be fired, okay? That would be always key, okay? So, when we go through this, we have, remember, the four main parts of a firearm. You have the bullet, the case, the powder that goes in the case, and the primer. Shotgun shells, you do have the hull, the primer, the powder, the wad, the shot. Again, this should match this. Make sure you go, yep, this is a 45, this is a 45, these go together. Always make sure that those are the same. Okay? Never mix or alter ammunition unless you're trained to do so, or you have been trained to reload your rounds. And I would recommend, if you want to do that, get training, because you can reload rounds. If you don't want to deal with that, don't try. But if you're going to go down that route, make sure you take a course, make sure you learn, make sure you train for that. Knowing your ammo is just as important as knowing your firearm. Knowing what you have makes everything work together. This right here deserves just as much respect as this, okay? If you treat them both with respect, you handle them safely, and you educate yourself on this, you are dramatically lowering any chances of anything going wrong. Okay? So make sure you keep that going. Now, no matter your experience, make sure you always keep learning, stay safe, and be ready. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on all social medias. Make sure you are following our podcast. It's very hard to get a firearm channel like this going. A lot of times places like to demonetize us for this, but my goal here is to make sure that people are using these things. Exist, people. You can't pretend that they don't. And my goal is to make sure that when someone has access to these, or if someone accidentally stumbles across something like this, at least they've had some education and training to know what they're dealing with, okay? So thanks for joining us on Heartland Arms. We'll see you on the next episode.